Silence. Absolute and profound. The kind of silence that existed before the mountains were born. It pressed down on the plateau, a physical weight. Beneath Lin Wei, the Azure Moon Mountains spread out like the fossilized spine of some colossal, slumbering beast. Thousands of peaks, sharp and unforgiving, clawed at the heavens. He was a single speck of dust upon their vast, cold canvas. A timeless breeze whispered through ancient pines. Their needles, thick as a warrior's finger, shed a faint, ethereal blue light. The air tasted of cold stone and thousand-year-old sap. Lin Wei sat cross-legged, a statue carved from living flesh. His eyes were shut, seeing not the world outside, but the universe within. His body was a bowstring, pulled taut to the very edge of snapping. Deep in his lower dantian, a low hum resonated. A vortex of sapphire qi, dense and heavy as liquid glass, swirled with terrifying speed. It was a miniature galaxy waiting for the command to form a star. Golden characters, ancient and profound, bloomed in his mind's eye. The Golden Core Formation Sutra, not just a text, but a living Tao that flowed through his very soul. Each character was a key, unlocking another chamber of his potential. His breath was the rhythm of the tide, slow, deep, unyielding. Inhale, muscles coiled tight, grinding against bone. Exhale, they relaxed, but only to prepare for the next wave of strain. Tendons, thin as silk, but strong as steel cable, stretched and groaned. They were being reforged, torn apart at a microscopic level, only to be woven back together, stronger. Pain, sharp and clean as a needle, pricked every nerve ending. It was the price of power. True mastery lies in the Tao, Lin Wei whispered, his voice a rustle of leaves. His words were not for any listener, but a reminder to himself, a mantra against the agony. Not forcing, but inviting the flow. As if in response, the air stirred. Faint, complex runes etched into the jagged rocks around him began to pulse with a soft silver light. They were a part of the mountain's own formation, ancient beyond memory. Wisps of qi, purer than any he could refine himself, poured into his body. From the unyielding earth beneath, from the thin, cold air around, from the very essence of the Azure Moon Mountains themselves. The sapphire vortex in his dantian began to compress. A single point of light, no bigger than a grain of rice, began to form at its center. It was the seed of his core, glowing with a steady, unwavering light. A voice, devoid of all warmth, sliced through the stillness. It was cold, precise, and utterly inhuman. Lin Wei. A hologram flickered into existence before him. The Overseer AI materialized not as a person, but as a complex, shifting sphere of azure light. Countless streams of blue glyphs flowed across its surface, displaying bursts of spiritual energy across a map of the region. Your progress is commendable. Your rate of qi absorption has increased by 7%. Lin Wei's eyes slowly opened. The sterile perfection of the crystalline training chamber was a jarring contrast to the wild plateau. Yet the tension here was a blade, honed to a much finer edge. There is a surge coming, the AI stated flatly. The glyphs on its surface shifted, coalescing into a terrifying crimson spiral. A spiritual energy convergence. In 3 cycles, the ambient qi in your designated zone will spike by a factor of 12. The AI paused, its light pulsing. It will be violent. Lin Wei rose to his feet.
Every muscle screamed in protest, aching from the deep tempering. But his spine was straight, his will unbent. He felt the hum of power in his newly forged sinews. The overseer continued, its voice a cascade of pure data. Only those prepared through adaptive meridian tempering will survive the initial shock wave. The unprepared will have their meridians flash-boiled from the inside. Your sinews must be steel, your bones unbreakable jade. Lin Wei clenched his fists. The sound was a dull crack, like stones grinding together. He looked not at the AI, but through it, at the path that lay ahead. Then I will make my body the anvil on which the Tao forges my soul. The next day, the valley air crackled. The petrified forest stood silent vigil, its dead trees like skeletal sentinels. Residual qi hummed from the fossilized wood, making the very ground vibrate. Lin Wei sat cross-legged, a statue carved from living flesh. Chen Huai sneered, his arms crossed over a chest thick with crude muscle. He was a bull, all power, no finesse.
I heard you were chosen for special training. Think you're ready to ascend? Pathetic. Lin Wei's stance was like a mountain root, unmoving, unshakable. His breath was silent, his qi flowing in a calm, controlled circuit. He treated the sneer as he would a barking dog, meaningless noise. With a roar, Chen Huai lunged. He didn't run, he exploded. The ground cracked under his feet as raw, untamed power crashed forward like a tidal wave of thunder. The air itself seemed to bend around his fists. Lin Wei did not retreat. He flowed. His body became water, his feet tracing an almost imperceptible arc. He met the storm not with a wall, but with a current. He guided the overwhelming force, redirecting it through his own meridians along carefully chosen acupuncture points. Pain flared through his right arm, a searing fire. The force was immense. He could hear his own sinews groaning, stretching to their absolute limit, threatening to tear from the bone. This was the tempering the AI had spoken of. Dragon half-shell strike. Lin Wei's roar was not loud, but it was absolute. It cut through Chen Huai's howl with chilling precision. His palm, held open, began to glow with an intense sapphire light. The light didn't just shine, it condensed, forming a translucent, shimmering barrier shaped like a dragon's scale. A focused pulse of qi erupted from its center. It was not an explosion, but a focused drill bit of pure force. Bang! The strike didn't hit Chen Huai, it hit the ground beneath his feet. The quartz-laced rock didn't crack, it vaporized. A crater bloomed where Chen Huai had stood a moment before. Shrapnel screamed past Chen Huai's head, scoring a thin line of blood on his cheek. Chen Huai stumbled back, his lunge broken, his balance shattered. Shocked silence descended upon the valley. The guards who had been watching with amusement now stared with wide eyes. They hadn't just seen a technique, they had seen utter control. Lin Wei's glare was as cold and hard as the mountain peaks. Strength is earned in silence, not in boasts. Chen Huai's face flushed crimson, then deathly pale. He gritted his teeth, swallowing the blood and the insult. He had been defeated without being touched. A humiliation worse than any physical blow. The surrounding guards exchanged hushed whispers, their awe palpable. A warm current flowed through Lin Wei's strained muscles. The pain receded, replaced by a feeling of newfound resilience. A crisp, mechanical voice echoed only in his mind. Sinew tempering technique unlocked. Impact resistance increased. Crimson twilight bled across the sky, bathing the ruins of the Celestial Pagoda in a bloody light. Dust from ages past coated fallen runestones, their carved formations long since broken. Flickering motes of spiritual flame, remnants of the pagoda's ancient power, danced in the air like ghostly fireflies. Lin Wei sat motionless,
but inside a war was raging. The nascent orb in his chi core was no longer a gentle glow. It thudded like a war drum, each beat sending a shockwave through his body. He was a crucible, and the metal within was reaching its melting point. His body was a battlefield. Muscles twitched and spasmed, lightning flashing beneath his skin. His bones began to creak, a low, groaning sound like an old tree in a hurricane, screaming under the immense internal pressure. His skin flushed a frightening shade of crimson, so hot that steam began to rise from his shoulders. His breath came in short, ragged gasps, his lungs burning. Every instinct screamed at him to stop, to release the pressure before he exploded. The Taoist principle echoed in his mind, a lifeline in a sea of torment. Yield. Do not resist. He did not fight the pain. He did not brace against the pressure. He opened himself to it, becoming the channel through which the storm could pass. The chi pulsed wildly, escaping his control. The dust around him lifted into the air, forming a swirling vortex. Small stones levitated, then shattered into powder with sharp cracks. A brilliant sapphire aura erupted from his body, casting long, dancing shadows among the ruins. A sudden, blinding flash burst from his core. For an instant, the light was brighter than the sun, washing out the crimson twilight in a wave of pure white energy. Power surged to the very breaking point, the precipice of a new realm. But the core did not form. The final condensation failed. The light vanished as quickly as it had appeared, the power receding back into the orb like a dying star. Lin Wei's eyes snapped open. There was no disappointment in them, only a fierce, calm fire. The road ahead was harsh, a path paved with agony and failure, but his spark had been ignited. The Epoch of Ascendance was near, and Lin Wei stood ready to forge himself anew in its flames.